Hey everyone, this is Ethan, and tonight we're going to be looking at the Arizona Cardinals. First, before I start, thanks for all the comments on the other videos. Positive feedback so far. I've gotten some nice subscribers, gotten some more Twitter followers. Keep it going because I really want to get this out there, get this sort of analysis out there to the masses. So let's keep on posting, keep watching, and hopefully you guys are staying tuned. For the Cardinals, I actually had my entire write-up set up. And then a good friend of mine who's been watching these videos, who's a huge Cardinals fan, decided to send me a message last night with some extra information. So I have to thank Cotter. Thank you for the extra information. I'm going to be using it in the video for sure because it's awesome insight from a fan of the team. And even though I like to consider myself pretty knowledgeable about every single team, I also really appreciate the nuances that only a true fan can bring to the table. So thank you so much, Cotter. And if anyone else has any other things that they want to add when I look at their teams and you have certain things you want me to hit on, let me know on the YouTube video or on my Twitter. So, for sure. Anyway, looking at the Cardinals, there are a couple of key ticks when they draft. First of all, they love seniors. I believe they've only taken 3 juniors in the past couple of drafts, all of them in that first, second round sandwich area. And they were Alan Branch, Beanie Wells, and Calais Campbell. Now, funnily enough, 2 of them are starting now, and Beanie's the one who's sort of platooning with Hightower. So, if a guy is slipping, they might take a look at him. But unless it's a guy they really like who's a junior, they're probably going to stay with the senior route. Second of all, they love the Big Ten and they love small schools. The Big Ten has been a home for a lot of players for them. They've used Ohio State. They've used Michigan a lot. And they definitely like taking guys from slightly cooler environments and bringing them to Arizona. I have a theory in general, because there's another team that does this a lot too, which I've noticed even before doing this project. That's Miami. And we're going to get into Miami's love with the Big Ten when I get there in about a week or so, maybe a little bit longer. I think they have like the 15th pick of the draft, so that's 9 days. But they love the Big Ten. And they're from like a hot area, Miami, pretty warm weather. Sperano just sort of builds around that, in Ireland, sort of build around that hard-nosed style. And I think that Whisenhunt sort of brings that marriage to Arizona, sort of in that influence with Rod Graves. So I think that that's definitely something to bear watching. Big Ten small schools, of course, Cromartie, Greg Toller, Andre Roberts, they've taken small school guys, and they like taking those. And third, Senior Bowl. The Cardinals have taken a lot of guys who they first saw at the Senior Bowl because they get to see those live players running around, seeing what they can do in a little bit less of a controlled environment than the Combine. You get to see players against the best. Darrell Washington, of course, a pretty notable case. He was a Senior Bowler last year. Then they traded up to take him in the second round. Andre Roberts of the Citadel, he was in the Senior Bowl. Then they ended up taking him in the draft. So they definitely value the Senior Bowl a lot when evaluating talent. And I think that's something to think about when picking players for them. So, 5th overall pick. I think this is actually one of the easier picks so far that we've had to figure out. And the person who I'm giving them is Von Miller of Texas A&M. I think unless they fall madly in love with Patrick Peterson, or they decide that they're going to break all trends and go with Blaine Gabbert, because this is the one team, more than any other team needing of a quarterback, that I see either trading for one or getting one through free agency. If they offer a good deal for Kyle Orton in Denver, I just cannot see why the Broncos would keep Orton. You have to at least see what Tebow's going to give you, right? I mean, I don't see why the Broncos would keep Orton if the Cardinals offer, say, a good deal for him. I don't know if they will. I think they also look for agency and look at guys who are going to be around there. The one quarterback I see them drafting potentially is Ricky Stanzi. He has the Big Ten thing, and I think that will be important in quarterbacks, especially when trying to draft them, for Wisenhunt, and he was in the Senior Bowl, and he's an overall good player. And I think that they could take him in the mid-rounds. But in the first round, I see Von Miller. He can play in that hybrid role in the 3-4 defense, which is what they're trying to run, sort of like what Pittsburgh did. And he would immediately be one of the better players on the defense, which needed help. And it's funny because they have in terms of names, their secondary is pretty good. But in terms of production, they weren't that good last year. And some of that has to do with the fact that they did not get any pass rush whatsoever. Joey Porter and Clark Higgins and whoever else they had in that repertoire just weren't very good. So getting Miller will be a huge boost for them. And I see him being the first round pick. Now, we look later in the draft. Gabe Karimi, if he slips, could be an interesting pick. They do need offensive line help. And Russ Grimm, the offensive line coach, loves molding these big mauler, Big Ten guys, making them into really good offensive linemen. You look at guys like Marcus Cannon out of TCU. Really big guy at 350 pounds. Apparently could play tackle or guard. I see him as a guard personally. I don't know where exactly the Cardinals would see him, but I would guess guard. Maybe tackle, maybe right tackle, but for now I'd probably put him as a guard. I could see that being a good pick. I could see John Moffitt, who was a pretty good offensive lineman from Wisconsin, being an interesting guy. He could play guard or center. I could see Steve Schilling, former Michigan alum, being an interesting guy because he can play guard or center. Cornerback-wise, because while Tolder is okay and he's going to get better, they do need help at that position. At this point, you kind of need 3 cornerbacks who are really good. Some names that have been bandied about, at least in my mind, are Curtis Marsh of Utah State, because he can match up in man. He has really good strength, good speed. He's a bit of a late riser as well. He's slowly creeping up boards. I could see him being a pick. I could see a guy like Cortez Allen of the Citadel being a later round selection, sort of a project type guy. They see what he can do. He has a lot of athletic skills, so he would be an upside pick. More interesting earlier round pick, if he happens to slip, is Razai Downing. And I'm a fan of Roz Dowling. I think that he is a little bit underrated, but I'm not sure he can play in man. However, he does have some of the qualities that would fit, and he did test better than a lot of people expected him to. So, it's possible. I think he'll be a good cornerback. I think he'd be better in a zone-based scheme than in a man-based scheme. They also might take some ancillary heart guys. Guys who sort of can play a versatile role, can play special teams, can offer some sort of different benefits that we have been seeing on the box score. Maybe guys like Kelvin Shepard of LSU, rangy linebacker. Scott Lutris of UConn is an interesting guy to mock to the Cardinals. I'm a UConn fan. That's my only real bias. I love UConn football. And Scott Lutris, really fast, big and strong guy. He could be a 3-4 outside linebacker in the right scheme, especially on rush downs. The thing was that Randy Edsall didn't blitz UConn's linebackers that much, but I could see Lutris transitioning into that 3-4 role. I'd have him as like a 5th or 6th round pick at this point because he played all of last year injured, and he has a stinger, and that could be an issue. Otherwise, I think he's a good pick. So definitely when mocking and looking at the Cardinals' options,